Pull out your phone and open a map. In 3 seconds, you know exactly where you are on Earth. A blue dot, a street name, a voice telling you where to turn. Navigation so easy a distracted adult can do it. Now put the phone away. Take away the map, take away the roads and the street signs. Now go somewhere 300 kilometers away. Across terrain you have never seen, with no trail, no guide, no GPS. Not just visit. Navigate there reliably. Find food and water on the way. Come back. Teach others to make the same journey. Ancient humans did this, routinely, across every continent on Earth, across deserts, across oceans, across mountain ranges, without maps, compasses, or anything we recognize as a navigation tool, and they did it successfully enough that their descendants ended up in every corner of the planet, which means the navigation worked extremely well. So how? What were the tools? What was the knowledge? The answer involves the sky, the ground, the animals, the plants, the wind, and the water, and one of the most sophisticated memory systems the human brain has ever developed. Let us start with the most obvious tool, the one that required no equipment and no technology at all. The sky. Before cities and artificial light, the night sky was not a faint suggestion. It was a blazing map overhead every single night. Ancient humans grew up under that sky every night of their lives. They could not avoid knowing it. The stars rise in the east and set in the west, everywhere on Earth. Every night, without exception, the North Star sits almost perfectly above the North Pole. It barely moves while everything else rotates around it. If you know which star does not move, you always know which direction is north. The North Star appears in navigation traditions from the Pacific, the Arctic, the Middle East, and North Africa. The sky was not decoration, it was infrastructure, a navigation system that never broke down. Different constellations appear at different times of year. The sky was also a calendar. The sun rises further north in summer, further south in winter. Its position tells you roughly where you are. Pacific Islanders use star paths, the arc a specific star traces across the sky, to navigate between islands thousands of kilometers apart. They crossed 3,000 kilometers of open water with no land in sight using only stars, waves, and birds. That is not primitive. That is astronomical knowledge most modern people could not begin to replicate. Every ancient human who spent their life outdoors developed a working relationship with the sky simply by living under it. The moon rises in the east and sets in the west. Its phase tells you where you are in the month. The Milky Way runs roughly north to south. In Africa, Australia, and the Americas, it was used as a directional reference. Aboriginal Australians read not just the bright stars, but the dark patches between them. They saw animals and pathways in the dark spaces of the sky, a completely different navigation system in the same sky. Now let us come down from the sky. Because the ground was just as full of information. Rivers always run downhill. Follow one downstream and you reach lower ground or the coast. Valleys funnel movement. Mountain ridges create walls that force travel through passes. An ancient human who grew up in a landscape knew its shape the way you know your own home. Muscle memory, spatial memory, the feel of terrain underfoot, the direction water flows. When moving into new territory, they paid attention with the same intensity a modern person pays to a map. Wind also has direction, and in any given region it is often consistent. Seasonal winds blow from specific directions. If the wind was in your face leaving camp, it was at your back returning. Snow drifts on the downwind side of obstacles. Dunes form on the downwind side of sand sources. Wind direction readable even in still conditions. Mosses tend to grow on the shaded side of trees and rocks. Certain plants orient toward the sun. Trees in exposed locations grow more heavily on their windward side, leaning away from the prevailing wind. Pacific Islanders read the direction of ocean swells, which travel consistently from specific storm systems thousands of kilometers away. Pacific navigators could feel specific ocean swells with their bodies while lying in the bottom of a canoe. That is navigation through the body, through physical sensation, through years of training. Animals were another source of information. Birds migrate in specific directions at specific times of year. Land birds flying out to sea in the morning and back in the evening told navigators the direction of land. Certain animals traveled to water at predictable times. Following them led to water sources. Now let us talk about the most powerful navigation tool of all, one that did not involve sky, ground, or animals. Memory, not written memory, not recorded memory. Living memory, the kind that lives in the body and the mind. Ancient humans had memory systems we have largely lost because we replaced them with external storage. When you have no external storage, the brain develops differently. It stores and retrieves spatial information at a level most modern people never need. Australian Aboriginal peoples developed one of the most extraordinary navigation systems ever documented. Songlines. Songlines are routes across the landscape encoded as songs. Every hill, waterhole, and rock formation has a verse. The song is the map. Singing it recreates the route in the mind. A person who knows the song knows the landscape, even if they have never physically walked it. Songlines could cover thousands of kilometers across Australia. Different groups own different sections of the same route. Trading the songs meant trading navigational knowledge. This is not mythology. This is a practical navigation and information storage system of extraordinary sophistication. The landscape did not need to be written down because it was sung down, generation after generation. The Inuit of the Arctic created detailed oral route descriptions across sea ice and tundra, memorized and passed down. In a landscape where everything looks the same to an outsider, the Inuit navigated with precision using subtle features. Snow texture changes depending on which direction the wind came from. Ice color changes depending on depth and age. This is not guessing. This is knowledge built over generations of living in a landscape that would end you if you got it wrong. Landmarks were the most fundamental navigation tool before GPS. A distinctive rock formation visible from 20 kilometers is better than any road sign. Ancient humans built landmark knowledge by traveling the same routes until they became familiar. When natural landmarks were not clear enough, humans made their own. Cairns, piles of stones at intervals along a route. Rock art often appears at significant landscape points. Junctions, water sources, passes, ancient signposts. The oldest known maps are not paper. They are rock carvings and cave paintings showing landscape features and routes. Humans were drawing maps in dirt, scratching them in stone, and encoding them in song long before anyone invented paper. Now let us talk about the most impressive navigation achievement in all of human prehistory. Getting to Australia. At least 65,000 years ago, humans crossed open ocean to reach Australia. At minimum, 60 to 90 kilometers of open water, out of sight of land, on a vessel they built themselves. That was not an accident. You cannot accidentally drift 60 kilometers and establish a thriving population. That was intentional navigation. Planned, organized, repeated enough times to bring a viable founding population. But the Polynesian expansion across the Pacific is even more staggering. Between 3,000 and 1,000 years ago, Polynesian navigators colonized every habitable island across the largest ocean on Earth. Hawaii, Easter Island, New Zealand, all found, all reached, all settled, without instruments. The Polynesian navigation system used stars, but it also used clouds. Land produces different cloud formations than open ocean. A navigator who knew island clouds could see land before seeing it. Phosphorescence in the water changes near land. Watercolor shifts. Floating vegetation shows direction. Certain seabirds roost on land at night and fly out to sea to feed in the day. Watching them in the evening showed the direction of land. The navigator processed dozens of signals simultaneously. Stars, waves, clouds, birds, fish, water, wind, all at once. This is multivariate navigation. Multiple simultaneous environmental data streams triangulating position and direction. Modern GPS does the same thing. It triangulates from multiple simultaneous signals. The logic is identical. The Polynesian navigators were doing what GPS does, just with stars and birds instead of satellites. Young navigators spent years learning from masters, memorizing star paths, learning to read water, training the body. The knowledge was precious, carefully guarded, passed from master to student over generations. It was not written down because it did not need to be written. It was lived. Ancient navigation knowledge was not individual. No single person knew everything. It was distributed across the community. One person knew the northern star paths, another knew the southern watershed, an elder knew routes not traveled in 20 years. Navigation knowledge was also passed through stories. A story about a journey was also a navigation guide. The characters moved through real landscapes. They crossed real rivers and passed real mountains. Someone who had never made a journey, but knew the stories about it, had the route in their head. Seasonal movements were also navigation storage. Hunter-gatherer groups followed the same seasonal routes year after year. Spring in this valley, summer in the high country, autumn near the coast, winter in the lowlands. The seasonal calendar was the navigation calendar. Every year traveling the same route reinforced the knowledge. When something changed, a waterhole dried up, a route became blocked, that information was immediately shared. Ancient navigation knowledge was living knowledge. It updated every time someone traveled and returned. Modern navigation is largely visual. Ancient navigation used the whole body. The sound of water tells you which direction it flows. The smell of salt air tells you the coast is near. The temperature changes near water. The humidity changes near vegetation. The ground feels different near a river. Ancient humans navigated with every sense at once. The body was a sensor array constantly feeding the brain. That kind of embodied awareness is something modern humans have not lost. We have simply stopped developing it. We outsourced it to devices. Starting from Africa roughly 60 to 70,000 years ago, humans reached every corner of Earth within perhaps 50,000 years. Every step required navigation. Every new environment required reading a new landscape. Groups moving into new territory had to build that knowledge from zero, using the same tools they had always used: observation, memory, sky, ground, animals, water. Navigation ability was survival ability, which means natural selection was operating on it. The human brain is extraordinarily good at spatial memory, landmark recognition, and mental mapping. Not by accident. For hundreds of thousands of years, those abilities kept people alive. We still have that brain. The hippocampus, most associated with spatial memory, is one of the most developed regions in the human brain. London taxi drivers who memorize the entire street map show measurable physical changes in their hippocampus. The ancient navigation hardware is still in there, still ready, still capable of extraordinary things when asked. We have simply stopped asking it to perform at that level, because the phone does it for us. Ancient navigation was not perfect, people got lost, but a hunter who knew the general landscape and got temporarily disoriented had recovery tools. Find a high point, read the watershed, check the sun position, watch the animals. Any of these could reorient. The deeper into unknown territory you went, the more dangerous an error became. This is probably why ancient groups expanded gradually, learning each new zone before moving further. Not reckless, not random, systematic. Each generation building on the navigation knowledge of the last. The mistakes were remembered too, passed down as warnings alongside the successes. So what does all of this actually tell us? Navigation is not technology. Navigation is intelligence applied to the environment. Technology makes it faster and more accurate. But the underlying ability to find your way does not require tools. Ancient navigation knowledge systems were sophisticated precisely because they could not rely on writing. When you cannot write something down, you make it memorable. You embed it in story, song, and practice so it cannot be forgotten. Some of these oral knowledge systems have been maintained continuously for tens of thousands of years. No book has lasted that long, no written record, no physical monument. But a song kept alive by living people can outlast stone. The ancient navigation capacity is not lost, it is dormant. Waiting to be used, a GPS tells you where you are. Ancient navigation knowledge made you know where you were. Those are different things. The instruments changed. The knowledge behind them is the same. And the human brain that made it all possible has not changed either. It is the same brain, the same spatial hardware, the same landmark recognition system, the same memory capacity, just pointed at different tasks. The next time you open a map app, you are doing something your ancestors would find astonishing. Not because they could not navigate, because they did it with their body and their mind, not a device. Ancient humans crossed every ocean, every mountain range, every desert, every forest on Earth using nothing but the sky, the ground, the animals, the plants, the water, and their own memory. And they ended up everywhere, every island, every continent, every environment on Earth, which is the best possible proof that the navigation worked. The next time your phone battery dies somewhere unfamiliar, do not panic. Pay attention instead. Where is the sun? Which way does the ground slope? Where does the water flow? Which direction are the birds going? What does the wind smell like? Your ancestors built a civilization in every corner of the earth using exactly those questions. And the part of your brain that knows how to use the answers is still there. The sky is not changed. The rivers still run downhill. The birds still fly toward land. The stars still rise in the east. You just have to look up from the screen long enough to read it. Subscribe to Ancivex, a new ancient history video every 2 days.